more about planning and organization. As Bo already mentioned, we made the webinar very interactive, so feel free to always share your thoughts and ask questions. That way you will get the most out of the webinar. And to start off with, I already have a question for you. I'm curious to know, how does planning and organization make you feel? So feel free to answer it in the chat. Overwhelming. Yes, definitely. Anxious, stressed, annoying. I absolutely agree with these. Stressed, overwhelming. So it seems like most of you very much struggle with planning and organization, which I definitely understand and get. I used to struggle a lot when it came to planning and organization, but because I pretty much studied this topic, I have learned a lot of tools and strategies that I will now also share with you that you can implement into your day-to-day life so that planning or organization doesn't feel as overwhelming and as stressful anymore. For probably most of you who signed up for this webinar, probably fall under the category or the umbrella term of neurodivergent. That means maybe you have autism spectrum disorder, you have ADHD, or how your brain works is just in a slightly different way. How you interpret things, how you see things, or how you do things might diverge from a societal standard, from a neurotypical. So our brains are just built slightly differently, and that's absolutely nothing bad. It's all about understanding how your brain is built and then working with your brain rather than against it. And because our brain is slightly differently built, that also means that our executive functioning skills are impacted by that. And our executive functioning skills is basically our management system of the brain. It's located in the front part of our brain, in the frontal lobe. And I always see it as my little CEO of the brain telling me what to do. And for someone who is not neurodivergent, who maybe doesn't have ADHD or isn't on the autistic spectrum, for them, their CEO in most cases is pretty strict and tells them what to do, how to break down tasks, and when to start. So when they get, for example, a work assignment, they get a deadline for 2 weeks. And then their CEO of the brain tells them, okay, it's time to start now. This is how long the task is going to take. And you should start breaking it down to see what steps lie ahead of you. For us neurodivergents, that's a slightly different story. Our CEO of the brain is very nice and is very relaxed. So if we get a deadline with 2 weeks for a new assignment, we might not start immediately. Our CEO of the brain won't help us break down these tasks. And then that will probably lead us to having to scramble in the last minute to get everything together. And these executive functioning skills, one of them is the organization planning, which we'll focus on today, but there are also 7 other executive functioning skills, and you can all see them here on the right on the purple wheel. So there's also goal setting, there's inhibition, task execution. So can you finish a task? Cognition, are you able to switch between tasks or make decisions? Task initiation, that would be starting tasks. And then there's also emotional regulation and working memory. As I said, today, we will only focus on organization planning, and all the other executive functioning skills are for another day. Besides our brain that's just built slightly differently, also how we do tasks and what makes us motivated to start a task is different. So many of us neurodivergents have a rather interest-based nervous system, and that means as long as the task is new, if it's exciting, if it's interesting, there's an urgency, so a deadline attached to it, or it's challenging, then it's so much easier for us to start the task. But if the task is boring, we're not interested in it, then it's almost seems impossible to start the task. So now I'm again curious to know if you feel like you have an interest-based nervous system. And you can answer it in the chat. And I think Bo also might have a poll for you to answer. But it seems like yes. I see a lot of yes coming in. So it seems like most of you have an interest-based nervous system as well, just like me. Oh, and now you can also answer it in the poll if you want to. So yes, as long as it's novelty and interest, then it becomes easier to start. Definitely. So 84% can relate to the interest-based nervous system, and then 2% might not have an interest-based nervous system, and then 14% are unsure. And whatever nervous system you have, there's absolutely no better nervous system or there's no worse nervous system. It's all, again, about understanding what works for you and how can you cater to your own unique needs. So now we will learn more about how you can use your interest-based nervous system to your advantage and make tasks easier for you. So now I would like to brainstorm with you guys together. How could you make a task feel new and exciting? And again, use the chat function if you can think of any way how you could make a task new and exciting. So with music, so pairing it with something you like. I'll use new journals and pens. Yeah, that's great. And then that makes it much more exciting. Timing it, that could also make it more exciting. Using your creativity. I love that. Yes. Because for us neurodivergent individuals, we often have a lower dopamine levels. So we always seek dopamine. And if we can trigger our reward center of the brain and kind of get the dopamine flowing, then it's so much easier for us to get excited and start a new task. So you could, like some of you already said, you could come up with a new routine, pair it with something that you like. For me, for example, I started learning a new language a couple of months ago. And in the beginning, it was super easy for me to learn the new language and do daily language lessons because it was new, it was exciting, and it was challenging. But after some time, it just got harder and harder because the newness of it and the excitement of it just went away. So I, instead of doing it in the evening, I then switched it to the morning. So I made it into a new routine. And then I also started pairing it with my morning tea because that's a time that I really like. So I paired it with a task that I really enjoy. You can also then incorporate different sensory elements that just align with your sensory needs. So using fidget toys or experimenting with different forms of lighting if you are very sensitive to light, that could also always be an option. And now for interest, what is something that you could use to make a task more interesting? And again, feel free to use the chat function and we can brainstorm some ideas together.
I also see that I think somebody has a question. I don't know if they want to ask it verbally, but they're welcome to. I can unmute them. I don't know if, okay, they haven't unraised their hand, so I'm gonna unmute or request to unmute them. Do you want to ask your question? Okay, mayhaps not. Okay, you can always ask it in the chat.
Okay, then I will read some of the ideas you came up with. Gamification, sweet treats after, working whilst you eat, so pairing it with something you like, turning it into teaching someone else. Yeah, that could be a nice way to do that. Body doubling, gamification is a game changer. Yes, I also love gamifying my tasks. When after task is my reward. Yes, so also using rewards. You can also then connect the task with things you feel passionate about, like some of you mentioned using music and pairing it with music. If you're very passionate about music, using a personalized points or reward system, that could also work for some people. So if you, for example, hate doing your chores, doing the cleaning, you could get a point after completing one chore. And then after X amount of points, you could go get your favorite ice cream or go on a hike, and then use these rewards to, again, activate the reward center of your brain. You could also collaborate with others who share similar interests, maybe doing it together with a friend or a family member or a colleague. That can also work. Now for urgency. How could you make a task feel more urgent, like it needs to be done now, but not having to do it in the last minute when you are extremely stressed and probably overwhelmed and have to scramble in the last minute? What are your ideas? I tell others about my self deadlines. Yes, that works really well. I love doing that myself. I will set the deadline earlier in my calendar, not giving it too much time for it. Having plans afterwards, yes, that can then also be used as a reward. Making friends with my future self. I love that. Making an urgent list, yes, that's also great. Strict timeline and a timer, multiple alerts. I love all of your ideas. Separating to-do lists. Yes, these are some awesome ideas. As you already mentioned, you can then introduce these fake deadlines. And I really like the one idea where you said that you will also tell other people about it. That can work really great. You can also then use fake consequences or rewards, whatever works best for you. So as someone said, they make plans afterwards. So you could use that. If you get the task done, you can see your friends. If you don't get it done in time or you didn't start, then maybe you will choose not to see your friends, and using these things. You can also use like snacks or whatever you like, podcast, music, as a reward to just make it easier to then, once you finish the task. And now for the last one, how could you make a task feel more challenging? What are some of your ideas? So setting the fake deadline seems to work really well for for most of you. So for making it challenging, imagine teaching someone in future. I like that. That's a very creative way to do that. I put on the music from Rocky. Then there is one question, but how many of ADHD people commit to their promises they take to themselves? So if you then pair it with these either rewards or consequences, that then can make it easier for you to follow through with those. Some other ideas how you could make a task feel more challenging is making it a competition, either a competition with yourself, or you could even do a competition with your friends or colleagues or flatmates. it really depends on your task. So for example, if you live in shared flat and you have to clean the flat, you could make it a competition and be like, who can clean their corner of the flat faster? Or you can time yourself and try to be cleaning your kitchen faster in the next day. You can also set goals that will make it feel challenging and will make you feel like it's very exciting and you want to get to the deadline. And you can also always change aspects of the task. So you could change the order and how you do the steps. You could also use some unexpected materials and just use your creativity. And for all of these suggestions or examples, it's important to understand that you don't have to do all of them. Maybe just some of them work. And it's sometimes also trial and error, figuring out what will work for you. And there really is no one size fits all approach. Now, I would love to try using the principle of novelty, interest, urgency, and challenge with one of you. If you raise your hand, and the first one who raises their hand, Bo will unmute, and then we can go through a task together. And maybe it's a task that you find challenging today or this week, and we can figure out how we can use these for. Hello, Mark. If you're saying something, I can't hear you. Okay, it says connecting to audio. So what is a task that you've been maybe struggling with today or this week? Oh, I can't hear you for some reason, because I can see you're unmuted. Can't hear you, unfortunately. If not, you can also write it in the chat. That
Okay.
works.
I think maybe we'll try somebody else, but thank you, Mark. I'm sorry it doesn't work. Okay, give me a second. I will find somebody else. Okay, Isabel, it is you, promoting you to panelist. Hello. And hopefully this will work. Okay, perfect.
Let's see, does this work?
Yeah, I can hear you. Perfect.
Great.
So what is a task that you've been struggling with today or this week?
Okay, the question is which one I haven't struggled with, but I will choose one big one. So I need to prepare my thesis.
Okay.
And then I have troubles with starting to like come up with more. I have one idea that I could start researching, I guess, but I should also have some backup ideas if this one kind of leads me to a dead end. And
Okay.
yeah, I don't know, it's such a big task, and I struggle with perfectionism, and for me,
I
it's
feel like
always
many
about,
of us do.
yeah, and for me, it's always about starting, and I feel like all of these ideas that we have had in the chat are really good, but I kind of have tried all of them, and maybe I need a more structured way to do it, but I feel like really nothing is working. And then sometimes, like for example, the days before some like a talk with a professor, like a midterm or something, then I can just force through everything and work several nights in a row, and then I always end up kind of finishing a task, but it means sacrificing my health in the end.
Yeah, yeah. So have you tried to make that the thesis just more the writing part more interesting for you?
Actually, the writing part is usually what I am not struggling with. So
Okay.
I'm studying design, and then the writing part is like a later thing. But I could also usually I will start on the writing already. For me, writing my way through my thoughts is a good way for me, but like starting with the design process, like if someone would ask me, I would know how, like, the teaching idea works for me,
Okay.
but it's so
Because
hard to teach myself.
in the next slides, we will also work more on how to break down tasks and prioritize tasks. So I think that will already be a big help. And now it's more about figuring out how can we make it more fun for you to get started and get working. So maybe you could try and change your locations to get started. So maybe going to the library or using body doubling with your colleagues or friends. Maybe that might help you.
Yeah.
You could also then try these fake deadlines, and if it's a possibility to tell these to your professor, I don't know, or you could tell it to a friend and they can kind of check in with you.
Yeah. Actually, I have that plan in the workings. I have a friend that we have the same problem, so we will do that.
That's perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah, because a fake deadline never works for me because I know it's fake.
Yeah, yeah. But then having your friend check in, that's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I can even have a hard time with that. I will be like, okay, so I didn't do what I said, but I will. And then, I mean, no one is really punishing me. No one is like disappointed for real. I think that's the hard part.
We will also then, that's a big part of building habits, and that's what we will also talk about in the next slide.
Yeah.
But maybe you can then try to tell your friend about these deadlines. That might already be a big help, and then trying to make it changing locations using body doubling, and maybe you could pair it with a task that you enjoy, like if you love coffee, start off drinking your coffee and like open your laptop and get started. And then how you can break down the task and how you can prioritize. That's something that you will also learn in the next couple of slides.
Okay. Yeah, because I feel like the overwhelm of these big tasks where I really imagine like I want to do a perfect design in the end. And I mean, it's also a high pressure. We'll present it for the whole school and a big event, yeah, with a lot of companies. So I think the perfectionism also makes me not even start it because I'm so afraid.
Yeah, that can be a huge challenge, but now we will talk about building these habits, and then you can also take notes and use some of these tools. And I think that will also help you a great deal working on that thesis. So thank you so much for participating and raising your hand and sharing your challenge with your thesis.
Yeah, no worries. Maybe it would.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I always do this with calls. I'm sorry I cut you off.
So now, as I already mentioned, we will talk more about building habits because, as I said, of course, it's important to know how can you make a task more exciting and more challenging and cater to your interest-based nervous system, but it's also super important to know how you can implement these changes on a day-to-day basis so they can become habits. And maybe you also struggle a great deal with habits, but I used to struggle a lot when it came to habits. And I could never get it right, and I could never stick with a habit until I started putting on my neurodivergent glasses and started kind of seeing what I needed for my neurodivergent brain. So now, if you think about building your habits, think about what is something you'd like more of in your day and what is something you would like less of in your day. And you can again share it in the chat. You can maybe even write it down on a piece of paper or in your journal or diary, whatever is best for you. But feel free to also share it in the chat. More exercise. Like more time. I would like more time for self-care, more time with family, less time on phone scrolling. Yeah, definitely less house chores and cleaning. That can be challenging sometimes, the chores. Less binge watching, more productive time. Yes, less time in my bed. Less time binge watching and gaming. Less wasted time. More fun stuff. Yes, I like that. I like these. And now when you think about what you want more, like for example, that one person who mentioned exercise, once we start building habits, you will also can either integrate these things to help you with building habits, or if you then build these habits, you will also have more time to do the things that you would like more of in your day. And there are a couple of cool tips and tricks that can help you build lasting habits. And again, for this one, there's no one size fits all approach, and it's really different for everyone. So we will go through a few, and you can see if maybe some of those or even all of those suit you, and if you want to try them out. So the first one is priming your environment, because if you create an environment that favors the habit that you're trying to build, that really helps you establish these long-lasting habits. And priming your environment will make future habits just so much easier. For me, for example, I always clean my desk in the morning because I need my desk to be cleared from any distractions because it's already so easy to get distracted. So that's how I start my morning. And it seems super simple, but a research study has actually shown that if you have a clean desk, you're 84% more productive. So that's a big number. You could also create a launch pad. That's a place where you would put, for example, your keys, your wallet, your jacket, your headphones, anything that you will need for the next day or for the morning. You could also, if you want to exercise in the morning, you could lay out your clothes for the exercise. So for example, your shoes, your gym bag, and your clothes. And that will just set you up so you are ready in the morning and will help you just set your environment up for success in building these habits. You can also use visual and verbal reminders. Our human brain can, on average, only remember 4 to 5 tasks that we have to do at once. So when we use visual and verbal reminders, that just makes it easier and kind of leaves brain space open for other things that we might need to think about. So you could use either sticky notes and put them on your desk, on the wall at your desk, or at your front door. You could also use clear storage boxes where you put your stuff into, and then having these clear storage boxes will help you actually see what's in there so you don't forget about it, because out of sight, out of mind. Yes, just like one of you just commented. And also an average, we search for a piece of paper for about 4 hours each week. So that will also help you bring down that number. And then because we live in a very exciting time and we have access to technology, you can also get help from technology, from apps like Tiimo. And with Tiimo, you would be able to put a widget either on the home screen or on the lock screen, and then you can see firstly a visual timer, so you know when the time is off, when you might need to switch tasks. You will see what task you're working on right now and also what tasks are coming up. Then body doubling, that's also something that a lot of you already mentioned in the chat. Body doubling is when you work together, and that can have very different forms. It really depends on your preference, but you could either work together in person, everyone could work on their own project. You could also, for example, if you have to clean out your closet, call up your friend, and then your friend comes over and helps you clean out the closet. You could also call your friend and just talk to them while you're doing the cleaning up. Or you could join an online body doubling group like Flown. For me, I always went, or I still sometimes do, go to the library to work, and that's honestly what got me through university. So these are all different ways you could use body doubling, and depending on what your preference is, adjust it to your needs. Then for breaking tasks down, that's a very important step to do, but often a very challenging step, because oftentimes we see this huge mountain of work that we have in front of us and we don't know where to start, and we don't know what the next steps are, and that just makes the task seem even more daunting. And then we usually push it off until the deadline or never even get started on it. And this goal setting theory was already established in the 1960s. So if we set small attainable goals and break down tasks into these small steps, then that increases our focus. It creates a sense of purpose and keeps us motivated and moving into the right direction. And we humans just don't excel on delayed gratification, especially for us neurodivergent individuals. So we always like to see progress, and we like to see progress as quickly and as often as possible. And by breaking the task down and having these smaller steps, that will give you just more rewards, and you will see that you're checking off to-dos more frequently, and that will again activate your reward center. And you could, for example, start off your workday by just writing everything down and brainstorming. If you, for example, have to do a research paper, that could start with, what is the first step that I need to do? So it could be firstly understanding what the research paper is about, what the question is about, writing, then the outline, and then the draft. But here again, you could use technology to support you. For example, Tiimo, they have an AI feature which will actually break down the task for you, which is pretty neat, because then you don't even have to do it. And then for the next one, for time management strategies, there are a couple of different time management strategies that you could use. And having certain time management strategies will just help you to impose a sense of urgency, and you will know that there's an endpoint coming up. So one would be using time blocking, so blocking off certain times in the calendar, which you allocate certain tasks to. You could use the Pomodoro technique, which is my personal favorite, not just because of the name. And that was established by an Italian research study, and Pomodoro means tomato. So in their research study, they used a tomato-shaped timer, and that's why it's called Pomodoro technique. And here you would work for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and then work again for 25 minutes. And these researchers found that if you stack 4 Pomodoros, so 4 times the 25 minutes, and then take a longer break, that this shows the best results. And then there's also the 1-3-5 rule. Here, researchers found that people oftentimes pack too many things in their day, so that you might get disappointed because you just don't get it done. So try to stick to 1 large task, 3 medium tasks, and 5 small tasks, because that's usually what a person can accomplish in one day. Now for prioritizing tasks, that's also often challenging to most people, but it can be a super important step to do. And if you've broken down the task, that can also help you to prioritize the task. You could use different color pens, highlighters to kind of mark which one has priority. You could also use different shapes to mark which one has priority. And then once you find out which tasks have priority for the day or for the week, you can put the other ones on a master list, so you know you won't forget about it, but you don't have to worry about it right now. You can also use the Eisenhower matrix. That's where you split up tasks in 4 blocks, and I will show you how I do that. We will share a whiteboard, and then we can do that together. Okay, so you can see hopefully the whiteboard, and here you can see my to-do list. So I just brainstormed it and put everything on here, and then you split it up into 4 squares. So here you have the important section, and here you have the non-important section, and here is the urgent and non-urgent section. So let's say that so the first task I have listed is finalizing my new coaching program. I would say that's pretty important, but it's not urgent. Where can I put so you can see it? Okay. So finalizing my new coaching program, then editing the last book chapter. That's pretty important and pretty urgent because I have a deadline coming up. So I will put it here, so I know I will have to do it. Scheduling next week's tasks. I would say it's important because next week is coming up, but it's not necessarily urgent. Picking up library books. That's something that's not important, but somewhat urgent. So I'll put it here. And I might even be able to delegate it to someone else. Responding to my clients, that's urgent and important. So I'll put it into this square. Field non-client emails. That is, I would say right now it's not important, but there is an urgency attached to it. Preparing social media content, here I would say it's important, but not urgent. So I know I will plan for these tasks. And then scheduling catch-up calls with colleagues, I would say right now it's not urgent and not important. So I will put it here. So I know that I'll remember it, but for this week, it's just not one of my priorities. And then responding to email planning on an event next summer, because summer is still far away. I will also put it here. So I know I will remember it, but it's not something I need to work on this week. And that's also how you could use the Eisenhower matrix on your own. And you can just keep it very simple. Just draw a square or like a cross on a piece of paper and then categorize which tasks are urgent and which ones aren't. And that will help you figure out what has priority today and this week.
A quick question from the chat that I'm seeing. Izzy asked, what if everything feels urgent? What do you do then?
I would say if everything feels urgent, I would write down everything you can think about. And then you will, just because what comes to your mind first, I would say it usually has a certain urgency attached to it. So you can also see what you written down first. And then once you then also broken down your tasks, that will also give you just a better understanding of how much work is attached to this. You can then also write down when the deadline is. That might give you a better sense of when you need to start working on it. And that can also help you prioritize the tasks. Now that you learned about the sensory nervous system, about your interest-based nervous system, and how you can make tasks more interesting, and also about building habits and especially lasting habits for us neurodivergents. Now, how can you make sure that you integrate that into your day-to-day life? So the first step is to plan ahead. Just take a look at maybe your calendar, what's coming up, when do you have some free time to maybe try out one of these tasks. Second step is to keep it simple. We love overcomplicating stuff, but that makes things just so much harder to stick with. So try to keep it as simple as possible. Then also gradual progress. That's another important thing to keep in mind. Sometimes we get super excited and we want to do everything all at once, but then that leads us to not continuing or following through with all of the steps that we wanted to try out. So maybe try and integrate one of the tools or tasks that you want to try out this week. And then once that works well, add on it the following week. And the most important step, I think, is to not get discouraged, because we all will have slip-ups. We all have bad days or even bad weeks. And it's all about accepting that and not getting discouraged, and then just turning the page the next day and trying it again the next day. And now Bo would like to plan a day with Tiimo, so I will hand it off to Bo.
Yes, exactly. Hello, hello. Okay, I would love to have one of y'all join me just for planning a task, not a day, because I don't think we have time. If anyone wants to volunteer as tribute to be my task buddy, Cheryl, I see Cheryl has raised their hand, so I'm going to promote you to panelist. And I am going to share my other screen because I'm wearing many hats today, lots of different little things. So give me a second. Perfect. Hello, Cheryl. Can you hear me / can I hear you?
Hi.
Hi, hello. Perfect. With everything that Janina just went over, I would love to hear if there's any task that you maybe have been putting off for a while, something that you need to kind of get out the door, possibly before the end of the week, that we could plan in Tiimo together. Is there anything that you can think of?
I do workshops for sports people, and I'm finding doing the actual PowerPoints for the athletes a bit of a struggle until the day before.
Okay, so finding a way to plan that in. So what I would suggest for this, it sounds like maybe an activity or maybe like a series of sessions, maybe breaking it up so that you don't have to do it all in one day, and like maybe doing a few slides a day. But what I would suggest is creating an activity for this and breaking it down kind of in the way that Janina suggested. Maybe she could help me with the specific steps for this. But if we click the let me go back. If you click the little plus sign at the bottom right of my day, for those of you who have Tiimo already, you will see the add activity section pop up. And then here, we saw some folks talk about the AI integration in the chat / not knowing how to break tasks down. So a really cool thing that you can do with Tiimo is the add with AI. Obviously, unless you make the title really specific, it's not gonna plan you an exact sports people workshop, but it could give you some suggestions for how to get started on a task. And the really nice thing here is that you don't have to follow what the AI says, obviously, just a suggestion for how to get going with a task. But does any of this seem remotely helpful? Because otherwise, maybe Janina can help me with some specific steps for this.
So I have to do research for it first because I'm only learning at the moment.
Mhm.
I need to do the research and then I need to organize it into different sections in the workshop and then create. I don't know how to find the right materials to read for it as well.
Okay.
Prepare necessary materials looks useful, but I don't know how to find necessary materials.
Okay. Yeah. Dr. Janina, do you have any tips for us as the planning expert?
Maybe you can also think about who you could ask for help. Is there anyone you could ask for help about accessing the material? Someone.
I do have a supervisor, but I feel like, and I know she's really nice, but I feel like I'm always going to her to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she's not getting annoyed, but I also feel like I don't want her to get annoyed at me.
Mm-hmm. I can totally understand that, but oftentimes we also overthink that. And if she hasn't mentioned anything, then I think it's always okay to ask for help. You could also just try and Google the topics that you're working on and want to include in the workshop. Maybe that will help you. You could also always ask AI for help, like ChatGPT. Yeah, exactly, like Mark just said. And that can be super helpful just to get started. And like these technologies can just help you to break things down, to brainstorm, and that can be helpful. Yeah, exactly. And then research for the workshop and then actually prepping for the workshop.
Yeah, I would also make it like different sessions so you can like focus your energy just on researching. And like what Janina said, I wouldn't be so hard on yourself. Our managers, our supervisors are there to support us. I've got mine in the session right now. And I'm sure they'd be more than happy to support you with finding resources as well. So yes. Okay, sweet. Well, I just wanted to show a little bit of an example. This is obviously a really small thing for like a small example. I wish I could show you a whole day. I will say I run starter sessions every week for using Tiimo specifically for planning and organization. If you ever want to join one of those, it would make me very happy. But yeah, thank you for your example. I'm gonna continue because we have so many questions and so little time. So perfect. So give me a second. Here we go. Share. Gorgeous. And we now have time for questions. I saw that there's a bunch. I've been keeping track of them. If there's anything that you want to ask that like I somehow glossed over, please ask it again in the Q&A section. But Janina, I have lots of questions for you, so hope you're ready. First one is any tips on maintaining good habits during low moods and depression?
For that, again, everyone has these lower days, and especially if you have depression, I think it's absolutely okay to step back, and you can kind of step back and take a look at your day, your weeks ahead, and see what is something that needs to be done, but it's not what is needed to be done, and what is just what can I skip. And then just focusing on the most important things and maybe the habits that will also help you for your mental health, for your physical health. For me, for example, I don't get my daily walk in, that really affects my mental health. So I always make that a priority, and that's a habit I never skip, even if I have a low day. So trying to evaluate what has priority and what's something that will also help you improve your mood.
Yes. And here's the next one. So I really feel that I have ADHD and I've been analyzing myself for over a year. What are the next steps that I should take?
So depending on what country you live, the steps are a bit different, but in most cases, you would go to your general practitioner, ask for a referral to a psychiatrist, and then you would go to the psychiatrist, and then she or he will evaluate you for ADHD. But again, from country to country, it sometimes depends a bit. If you want, you can always also just email me or message me on Instagram if you want more detailed step-by-step process.
Perfect. Okay, next one. I tend to not stick with any one system for longer than 5 to 6 months at the most, often less. At this point, I kind of just roll with that and rotate between a few approaches. However, sometimes I can fake myself out of it with aesthetic changes. So I'm curious, how customizable Tiimo is. Realizing this is a Tiimo question, only at the very end. So I will take this one. Very customizable. Our app is really there for you to be able to work with it in a way that works for your brain. So there's a lot of options in there to make it fit what you need. So lots of customization options with custom sounds, notifications, also the option to add a lot of colors and detail, but is absolutely not a requirement. So I hope that you try it and love Tiimo. And if there's anything that you want to ask, you should send me an email after. I'll share my contact info. Anyways, okay, next question for you. Okay. Okay, this person is asking about ADHD and romantic relationships and just like navigating that. I'm just wondering if you have any like high point suggestions for this.
So first, being open about your diagnosis, and then also having an open conversation with your partner about what it means to have ADHD and what you really struggle with, and then trying also to support each other through these struggles. Or if it's, for example, if you always need to switch things up, then how could you do that together? Or if you have a hard time with a certain chore, maybe your partner can support you with that, and just having an open conversation. And I also have a whole list of posts about ADHD and relationships on my Instagram saved. So if you want, you can also read through these if you want more details.
Gorgeous. Next one. Do you have any ideas on how I can fix or reduce my false sense of having more than enough time to do a task? Yes.
So I suggest using timers, and especially visual timers. So the one from Tiimo, if you have the app, or getting just a normal kitchen timer, whatever timer you have handy, that can be helpful. Then always, if you think a task is going to take X amount of minutes, always doubling that time. That is helpful. And once you also start using timer, you might become more aware of how much time a task takes. You can even note it down if you feel like that would be helpful for you to just get a better sense of how much time has passed and how much time do tasks take, and then doubling the time as well.
Gorgeous. And then how can I make tasks seem less daunting and intimidating, which can sometimes lead to panic attacks, stress?
Definitely. So breaking down tasks, that's a huge one. That can just make a task feel less daunting because you know what steps you have to take. And then you can just focus on one step at a time, and you don't have to think like 10 steps in advance.
And then the next one, does anyone have any suggestions? Do you have suggestions on how to approach a big, scary task, master's thesis, that I can't figure out the steps to even start? I keep procrastinating it and I don't know how to write it.
So here again, breaking down the task, and you could use AI, the AI feature from Tiimo, or use ChatGPT, and to like brainstorm, to kind of get a step-by-step process. And if you use ChatGPT, it's not going to be perfect, but at least it will give you kind of a rough idea where to start. And then really think about, like, take a step back and think about, okay, what is the first thing that I can do? Did you understand what you have to write your thesis about? Then the next step is, okay, maybe researching that topic. What is out there? Then writing an outline. What could I bring into that thesis? And then just going from there. But really making sure that you break it down so you know what each step is.
And then I struggle with finishing things. I can have a lot of tasks or hobbies like reading a book, start and then leave for later and never touch them again. How can I be consistent?
So first, I would make sure that once you select like a new hobby, that you don't, for example, if you suddenly want to start with reading, don't buy 10 books altogether. Maybe just buy one, maybe buy a shorter book and just try it out and see if it's something for you. And then you can always move on to the next one, but then you haven't invested too much money in it. And also knowing that if it's a hobby, you can, of course, switch between different hobbies and you don't have to stick with something. A hobby is supposed to bring you fun and joy. And if you don't like it anymore, it's also okay to switch to a new hobby.
Okay, and then the next one, I really struggle with remembering things like watching a video, and then examples needing to go back every minute because they didn't take it all in, or a conversation with their girlfriends and not remembering what she said. They believe it's ADHD related, but if there's any ideas or clarification on that.
So a lot of, especially ADHDers or neurodiverse individuals, have auditory processing challenges. So that means that if someone just says something to you, it's so hard to firstly understand what is being said and then especially remembering it. So if you can watch a video with subtitles, that can already be helpful. You can also always take notes. And sometimes you don't even need to go back to your notes. Just writing it down will also already help you to remember the information. And then if like your friend tells you something or says something about a specific date, just making sure that you immediately put it into your calendar, into your app, into your notebook, so you know you have that date saved.
Perfect. Next question. I often feel really tired and find it really difficult to get started. Mornings are really hard and I often function better in the afternoon. Any advice around this?
I think it's totally normal that we have different energy levels. Some people are morning person, some people are noon people, and some people are evening people. And our energy is just then different on these during these different times. If you need to get out in the morning, especially early, and you're not a morning person, try to make sure that you set up your environment in a way that it will benefit you and will make the morning just easier and less hectic. And then try to schedule maybe more challenging tasks, more tasks that you have to focus on in the afternoon time when you have more energy. That can be helpful. And then just, again, trying to work with how you work and how your brain works.
Perfect. And then, any advice on how to remind yourself of helpful strategies when you're actively in executive dysfunction panic?
So I would say kind of brainstorming or even brain dumping and writing everything down you feel stressed about, overwhelmed about, and then trying to take it one step at a time. And here again, you could use highlighters, you could use different colored pens or shapes. You could also put it into an app to help you kind of get a clearer picture of what you want or have to do. And then just focusing on the things that have most priority.
Perfect. And I think those are all the questions for you. I have some to answer, so let me go through those. Seeing lots of talk about WhatsApp, community spaces, gorgeous, very amazing. Actually, in the starter sessions that I've been running, that has come up at the end of like every single session, and we have listened. So we actually started a community space this week. Very, very exciting. It's hosted on Mighty Networks. The link to join it is going to be sent in the email that you're going to get after the session. It would make me so happy if you joined there. It's a place to share tips and tricks, and I would love your input as we build it, because I want it to be like a genuinely useful space. You can access it on the app and on the web browser. And yes, please join it. Make it special. It's very much like in its baby phase right now, but I would love moderators and support and ideas for how to make it gorgeous. Yes. Okay. Let me see if there's any other questions. The free versus the not free version. Okay, I'm seeing some very Tiimo specific ones that I am going to answer after I show the last few slides. So if you want to stick around, that would be gorgeous. But just a little bit of what's happening at Tiimo. So we have our Changemaker series. This is my baby. It is a series highlighting neurodivergent activists and experts across identities and intersections. The series is available on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we have a transcribed version as well. So lots of ways to engage with us, with these activists. So would love if you engage with that. We also have the starter sessions for everything in order to learn about Tiimo and all the things that you can do with the app. This is a really great one. I will also make sure to include a link for signing up to that in the email afterwards. They're every week, and the next one is November 15th, I think at 6 p.m. as well. We also have coaching. So Dr. Janina is starting a coaching cohort actually in January, which is very, very exciting. And the link to sign up for that is also it's going to be a long email, but it's going to be in the link in the email as well. And then, like I said, the community space, which is totally free to join, and it would make me very happy if you join that as well. So yes, and here's where to find us. So Dr. Janina has a website and a very gorgeous Instagram, so you should absolutely follow her. We also have a website. We also have an app. Did you know? Amazing. So you can find us in your local app store, and we have an Instagram and a TikTok. There's some really fun, very good videos of me on that TikTok, so you should absolutely go follow that. Yes. And then just as a thank you to you, we have a little offer. So we are offering a month of free of Tiimo. Yes, that is it. Just because we know that it can take, 21 to 30 days to build a healthy habit. We went over some habit building methods today. So both on Android and iOS, you now have a month free of Tiimo. We also have a really exciting coaching offer. So it's a year premium subscription of Tiimo and that 4-week coaching program for $99. If you scan that QR code or you follow the link in the email after, you can redeem that. All these are available for 24 hours only, so just make sure you grab them. And I think, is that it? No, okay. Please also engage with our survey. That's another link that's going to be in the email. We want to make these sessions like genuinely helpful for people. We're dreaming of some other sessions for the future, and it would just mean a lot if you can tell us what you thought. If you have any ideas of how to improve or other sessions you'd like to see, it would be very, very gorgeous. Yes. Okay. Now that we have all of that out of the way, I can absolutely take some time to answer some Tiimo specific questions. But wait, I see one more question from Yuko for Dr. Janina. So how can I not feel bad about myself when I feel like I'm maybe just being lazy and not being able to focus?
So firstly, not being so hard on yourself, trying to do, I love doing a reverse to-do list writing down everything that you accomplished in a day or in a week rather than the things that you didn't accomplish or that didn't get done. And that will help you just to see how much you can actually achieve every day. And then trying to think about, if you feel like it's always hard for you to concentrate, how can you mix things up? How can you make it better? Try to integrate some of the tools that we talked about, or try to integrate some more movement into when you have to study or have to focus. Movement can always be great for our brain. And then just, yes, as I said, trying out these tools and making sure that you also don't overwhelm yourself and don't put too much stuff into your one day.
Okay, gorgeous. I think these are all the questions for you. So thank you so much, Dr. Janina. This was very, very gorgeous. For the folks that want to stick around, I'm going to share a few Tiimo things now, mostly just what's available in the free and the premium version. So that is there. If anything else pops up for you, please reach out to us. I know you can. The email for Tiimo is community@tiimo.dk. Maybe Helena can put it in the chat, and it's also in that very long email you're going to get after. And yeah, if you want to see more of Dr. Janina, you should absolutely sign up for that coaching. It's going to be very gorgeous. I'm super excited. And thank you so much. And I will now share one more slide deck because I got excited. So give me a second. Here we go. I don't even know if that person is still here, but they're getting an answer. So this is the feature breakdown of what's available on the free and the premium version of Tiimo. So the free has that visual timeline, activities and routines, start pausing and editing of plans, some home and lock screen widgets, and the Explore tab. The Explore tab is really great if you want some inspiration for how to get any activity or routine done. And then the fancy premium version has checklists as well. You can set a bunch of different reminders. There is importing of calendars. This is really great for getting started with the app. So you can just like import all your existing calendars instead of like reinventing the wheel and having to plan from scratch. You also have full customization with like a gazillion colors and icons and everything. You have our notes section, and the notes section is getting a makeover at the moment, which I'm super excited for. So it's gonna also allow you to have separate lists in there and everything. And then up to 5 profiles. So this is really great if you, for example, want an accountability buddy, or you have a partner or partners that you want on your Tiimo account, or you know, your cat has a specific schedule, or you're a caretaker. So you can split that cost as well between 5 people. And all of that said, we recognize that we work with a lot of neurodivergent folks. We know that neurodivergent folks are historically marginalized and underemployed. So if you ever don't have financial access to Tiimo, but you think it's a resource that would really benefit you, please reach out to us and we'll try to make something work for you. So the email is in the little email you'll get after this, community@tiimo.dk. So yes, cool. Did anyone else have questions while I was doing my spiel? Let's see. AI integrated. Do you have any plans to use AI in order to schedule and break down tasks so as to make them more manageable? I am not the right person for this question. Maybe Helena knows a bit more. Otherwise, if you pop over your email, I will ask our tech team, and we can let you know for more of their input. We have a team of amazing developers, both for our iOS and our Android app, and I know they have the answer. And I think they're probably on this call, some of them, but they don't have talking rights, so I'm sorry. But I'm gonna take a screenshot. Perfect. Okay, and then calendar import. I don't particularly want Google having my life details. Is there a way to have a direct import from iOS or Outlook? So actually the way to do it right now is to import your calendars into Apple Calendar, and then you can import that into Tiimo. And the nice thing is you can also like select which calendars you want in there. So like, for example, when I'm on vacation, I don't want my work calendar in Tiimo, so I can just like unselect it and it doesn't show up. So, okay. Perfect. Thank you, Pam. I have made a note of this and I'll let you know. Perfect. Taking notes. Gorgeous. And then is there a login for Tiimo Town the same as the Tiimo login? That would be amazing. For now, the like Mighty Networks community is separate from the app. We're hoping to integrate them one day, but this is kind of like a first version. So you're gonna have to create a new setup. So all new account for this. I hope it's okay. Yes. Okay. And then what's the difference between premium and lifetime plan? Premium is just, I believe you can have it for monthly and yearly, and then the lifetime is just you pay a one-off price and then you don't have to pay for Tiimo again. I hope that's correct. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
It's correct.
Okay, amazing. Cool. Is there any other questions? Okay, could you put up the slide? Yeah, absolutely. 1 second. Let me pull up the slide again. Beep, beep, beep. This is not the slide. This is the slide. Here we go. Perfect. And like I said, you're gonna get all the links and everything in that email afterwards as well. So in case your camera doesn't work or something, or you only have one device, you'll still get access to these. So perfect. Does anyone else have any questions or anything? Thank you, Pam. Perfect. Gorgeous. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It was a pleasure. If you have any ideas for future sessions, any feedback, please share it with us. And we are excited to see you again soon, hopefully. I'm going to stop the fancy recording thingy. So you don't get sent like 3 hours of random talking. How do I turn it off? There we go.